some cabinet ministers privately agree that the UK should agree a looser free trade deal with the EU.
I've no doubt. I mean, delivering Brexit is challenging, it's difficult, we know all of that. But I'm sure she's listening, I'm sure she's looking at many of the other plans and ideas that have been put forward. And that work has been taking place in governments, and now I think it's about time that was elevated and brought to the table and actually looked at in that holistic way.
Just before we came on air, I talked to Jacob Rees-Mogg, head of the ERG group of Brexiteers, and I asked him if he accepted that Boris Johnson had made sure today had been all about Boris Johnson.
He is using the power of his personality to promote a proper Brexit, a clean Brexit, and that's the right thing for him to be doing.
It was an unedifying spectacle, wasn't it? If you were the Prime Minister and you saw queues of people standing there for over 2 hours to hear your former Foreign Secretary trashing your leadership in the hall of your conference, it was deeply unedifying.
I don't think it was unedifying. It showed where the bulk of the Conservative Party is. The Conservative Party wants a clean Brexit. And it's very important that the Prime Minister knows what the mood of the country, the Conservative Party, and indeed of MPs is, that sometimes Prime Ministers can be very protected and cut off from what public opinion is saying, and that may be part of the problem with Chequers, because the Chequers proposal is not Brexit. And you see from that attendance, that enthusiasm, that the Conservative Party at its conference wants a clean Brexit. That is the overwhelming message. And that's not unedifying, that's actually democracy in action. It's very encouraging.
This was not about the customs union today. This was about character. This was about somebody who said she risked prosecution, who said her plan was dangerous, unstable, humiliating, and an outrage. Now, there are ways of doing that, and one way is not to sign up to the deal, to sign up to the Chequers agreement first, and then leave government, and then come back right in the middle of a conference and steal her show. Surely you don't condone that behaviour.
Not only do I condone it, I fully support it. I think the Chequers proposal is dreadful. I think it is not Brexit, and it's very hard to see how it could work without us being the vassal state, which is the outcome that all of us have wanted to avoid. So Chequers is a really rotten proposal, and Boris Johnson is saying that, and he's quite right to say that.
Do you fully support it? Do you fully support him? Does he have your backing?
It depends what you mean. I admire Boris Johnson. I think he's a very capable person.
There isn't room for two Prime Ministers here, and he is trying to be the next one.
There's one Prime Minister, and I'm supporting Theresa May as Prime Minister, but I'm not supporting Chequers. Chequers will let Jeremy Corbyn in.
She is Chequers. I'm sorry to interrupt, but she is Chequers. The Prime Minister is Chequers, and Chequers is the Prime Minister. And you know very well that if Chequers goes, she goes too, and he's trying to get rid of both. Not just the plan, both.
I don't think that follows. The Prime Minister set out a very clear plan at Lancaster House and in the Conservative Party manifesto, which is very different from Chequers. The Prime Minister's position is said by her own team to have evolved, and the issue is, will it evolve back again?
There is Boris Johnson, who signs up to the Chequers deal and then resigns because he wants something more. He couldn't even decide which Telegraph column he was originally going to publish. He wasn't a fan of Brexit to begin with.
I think it's unfair to say Boris signed up to Chequers. He was there, he was at the meeting.
He signed up to it.
No, I don't think that's the right way of saying it. Neither he nor David Davis signed up to it. They could not accept constriction of collective responsibility in supporting Chequers. They left the government because they didn't.
He didn't even resign until David Davis stepped down.
No, he took time to resign. That's perfectly reasonable. He had resigned within 48 hours of Chequers. I think that really is splitting hairs.
It was her Brexit secretary, wasn't it, Dominic Raab, who said, if I told you 3 years ago, you know the quote, we were going to end free movement, stop the vast annual budget contributions, leave the single market, get out the customs union, blah, 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 you'd have bitten my arm off. Now, that's the truth. For most people, this is what they imagined a Brexit could be. Why does it have to be something that now brings down the government?
I tend not to be a great one for biting people's arms, but leaving that to one
biting
side...
people's arms off?
Yes, I'm certainly not going to bite them off.
Right.
I'm not a cannibal. But leaving that to one side, the issue here is that actually Chequers leaves us within the single market, leaves us as a rule taker, leaves us de facto subject to the European Court of Justice, and these weasel words on not having vast payments. How big are these payments going to be if we're signing up to the acquis communautaire for goods and agri-foods?
This is an
That question isn't even answered. And free movement, do we really know what's happening with free movement?
Chucking Chequers could bring down this government. Are you prepared to back that?
No, it couldn't. You're ignoring the 2011 Fixed-Term Parliament Act.
Because I don't believe that counts. I think if Chequers goes, then Theresa May has to follow. I don't see how she can stay in the job when everyone has manifestly shown they have no confidence in her judgment.
They have no confidence in one particular policy. They have confidence in other policies. But this policy has come from a policy that had widespread support. Even as far as the Mansion House speech, people like me were willing to compromise, willing to go along with it. And that then turned into Chequers, which is not properly leaving the European Union.
If it's a choice between Chequers or Boris Johnson as the next Prime Minister, where would you go?
People offer all sorts of choices. People have said Chequers or Jeremy Corbyn.
Well, I'm offering Chequers or Boris Johnson right now to you, Jacob Rees-Mogg. Where is your support?
Yeah, but it's a false choice. That I'm going to vote against Chequers if Chequers is presented to Parliament because it is not Brexit, it is not delivering on the referendum result, and it's not delivering on the Conservative Party manifesto. I think MPs, all politicians, have to maintain faith with the electorate, and Chequers, to my mind, does not do that.
Jacob Rees-Mogg, thank you.
Thank you so much.
This afternoon I've been meeting activists, I've been talking to people about the conference, and I've been seeing a party that is in really good heart.
People were certainly in good heart in the Boris Johnson speech. More than 1,000 people cheered him for demanding that you drop your Chequers compromise plan. He said it's not democracy if you continue.
Well, first of all, there's one thing we all know about Boris is that he'll put on a good show. But what we've been doing here at conference, of course, and I think what matters to people out there, is what the government does and what we focus on in terms of their day-to-day lives and what really matters to them. And the point about the proposal we've put forward on Brexit is that it delivers on what people voted for in the Brexit vote. It delivers an end to free movement, that we won't be sending, we take control of our money back, we won't be sending vast annual sums to the EU, we will take control of our laws, we won't be under the jurisdiction of the European Court. But it does it in a way that also protects jobs, and that's about something that matters to people on their day-to-day, in their day-to-day lives.
But this is not just about Boris Johnson putting on a good show. There is more than a few people grumbling at the edges of your party. There were MPs in there also cheering him as he said that your Chequers proposal is an outrage. Now, how do you respond to that?
Well, let's just step back and look at why we put the Chequers proposal forward. The European Union has effectively put two options on the table, neither of which is acceptable to the United Kingdom. The first would effectively not deliver on the vote of the referendum by keeping us in the customs union, the single market, and not bringing a proper end to free movement. The second would effectively break up our country. Now, we could have said, well, let's see if we can accept one of those. But we didn't. We said no. We are going to say to the European Union, we don't accept what you've put on the table. We will put a further proposal forward, which is the Chequers plan. But that plan, what it does is it delivers on the vote for the British people. It brings an end to free movement. We've announced our new immigration policy today.
And we'll come to that.
Free movement will end
we'll
once
come
and
to
for
that
all.
in a second.
It brings our control of our laws, but it does it in a way that protects the Union of the United Kingdom, ensures we have no hard border between Northern Ireland and Ireland, and ensures that we protect jobs here in the UK.
He's directly challenging your authority, Prime Minister.
No, what is important for people who are listening, what is important for people in their day-to-day lives, is that the government is putting the national interest first, both in what we do on Brexit, but also in what we do on our domestic agenda. On Brexit, what we have done is put forward a proposal that does reflect, it respects, it delivers on the vote that the British people gave, leaving the European Union, doing so in a way that takes back control of our money, of our laws and of our borders, and all the other things like coming out of the common agricultural policy and the common fisheries policy. But it does it in a way which has a free trade area and frictionless trade at its heart. That means we can deliver for the people of Northern Ireland as we deliver for the rest of the UK, and it means we protect jobs.
But, Prime Minister, in order to deliver on that plan, you need the authority, you need your party behind you, you will then need Parliament behind you. Now, Boris Johnson has come here today and trampled all over that. You must be cross. How can you put up with it?
Well, there are one or two things that Boris said that I am cross about. He wanted to tear up our guarantee to the people of Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom. You know, we are all, he and I, all members here are members of the Conservative and Unionist Party. That's because we believe in the Union of the United Kingdom. Northern Ireland is part of that union. And we have a guarantee for the people of Northern Ireland, and we are upholding that. Our Chequers plan does that. It's the only plan on the table at the moment that does.
And do you think that Boris Johnson could ever be Prime Minister?
I'm not speculating about or commenting about jobs
Your Chancellor
for individual members of Parliament. This is not about the jobs of politicians. This is about the jobs of people out there in our country. It's about protecting those jobs for the future. It's about ensuring that when we leave the European Union, we get the best deal for our future trade with Europe. But as well as doing that, we're able to trade around the rest of the world. We can enhance the economy here, improve the economy, bring prosperity to our country. That's what I'm thinking about.
And you sound angry with him then, that he is playing this political game while you're trying to navigate the country through one of the most complicated political tasks in decades.
What I feel most strongly about is putting the national interest first. What I feel most strongly about is working to ensure that we get the best possible deal from the European Union in terms of our relationship with them in the future when we leave. That's what I'm focused on. That's what the government is focusing on, alongside all the things we're doing to deal with the day-to-day issues that matter to people, like housing, like the NHS, like the quality of education in our schools.
And of course on immigration, and you are setting out your new policy today. Do you think ordinary people will feel a difference when they look at the country after your new immigration policy has been brought in?
I think people will feel a difference because they will know that for the first time in decades, it is the UK government that is deciding who can come into the country, because we will be bringing an end to free movement once and for all. So we will be able to decide the basis on which people come to the UK. That hasn't been possible for many years. For people coming from the EU, that will change.